Hello and welcome everyone to another weekly market commentary from StashAway. With us, of course, our Chief Investment Officer, Freddy Lim. Hey, Freddy, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing well. I'm just not so sure about the Suez Canal this morning.
Yes, and we do want to get into the Suez Canal. Before we do, though, Freddy, I do want to give a little bit shout out about what happened last week or started last weekend. And we want to just make sure that everyone is aware of the situation. There was a scam notice. So over the last week, a group of scammers claiming to be from StashAway have been contacting people at random over WhatsApp. So the perpetrators have been impersonating StashAway on WhatsApp and mass inviting individuals randomly into a WhatsApp group. So you can always check that it's us on WhatsApp by looking out for WhatsApp's green badge. So there's a green icon badge next to our contact name, StashAway. You'll also see notifications saying that this chat is with the official business account of StashAway, and tap to learn more. So those are ways to find out. The green badge icon and notification indicate that the account belongs to actually to us and is our verified WhatsApp number. And I want to mention the WhatsApp number here as well. So it's +65 9877 0801. So we only ever contact you through this account, no other account. So if you see any other number, please send us a message on email or through our real WhatsApp account so that we can follow up with this. And if you think you've been contacted by any scammer, again, we encourage you to block the number, report it to WhatsApp, and not share any personal information with them at all. So we also filed a police report. So all of the things are on the way. But anyways, again, thank you everyone for making us aware of the situation.
I would also emphasize that, look, when in doubt, always defer to best practices, call our official numbers and ask. And also, just so you know, any properly regulated entities would never ask for money in a WhatsApp. You always go through the proper banking channel, proper payments channel. So when in doubt, don't pay. Call in, ask questions. Just be a bit more careful with your money.
Last but not least, we do get to your Suez Canal. This has obviously happened in the last 24 hours, almost 2 days now. But by the time you might be listening to this, give us a little bit of an overview of what's happening there and why it's actually important.
Nah, not. I mean, you wouldn't expect something like this to be important, but it's logistics. The Suez Canal is built a long time ago. It's not so big, and ships are getting bigger. So when a ship broke down, 10 tankers behind it were stuck in the Suez Canal. They're still trying to clear it, and those ships hold 13 million barrels of oil or gas equivalent. So the market that swing the oil market by up and down 6-7 percentage point within a day. So just when you didn't expect such a thing would be important, but it is sort of important enough for the oil markets.
Yeah, no, it is, and I think I read somewhere it's actually 10% of all worldwide ship traffic on a daily basis, right? So it's a quite a long, quite an important trade route. So we'll be monitoring it, but again,
they will need to clear it within the next day or two. If you can't, a lot of tankers will start trying to reroute through the Cape of Good Hope. That's a long way to get to Asia, and you see increases in prices in energy and so on, hitting your purse if that happens. But again, these are short-term factors. It's not a permanent thing.
yes, short-term factors, and I'm sure like the captain is probably the one least happy about all of this, right? That it happened to him. But Freddie, Suez Canal is one. I think this week as well, we saw a lot of declines in terms of Chinese equities market as well. Any update on that? What's going on there, and what your kind of like interpretation is of that?
I mean, to make it brief, I think all markets have gone up a lot, and that's what happens. Then investors, when things are so nothing is cheap, right? And when that happens, investors would start becoming more sensitive to anything. And so what happened in China was that they sort of allow some of the COVID relief spendings programs to expire, and that sort of make people rethink, like, US is doing more stimulus and China is not. And some of you may think it's a bad news for stock market, but I question that, because if you don't need it, why do it? The Chinese economy is one of the leading ones in the world right now in terms of the rebound. It has its mobility has really gone back to pre-COVID level, right? Everything in China is really, really sort of much more normalized than in the US and otherwise. And having more stimulus is not necessarily a good thing, right? It does cheapen your currencies, it dilute the value of your paper money. Or some of you may be concerned with the US dollars. So there's a lot of give and take with every actions taken. I think I want to just caution investors from overreading this sort of news too much. Think medium to long term. And the medium to long term story is, if I ask you this, would you, in the medium to long term, have zero investment in China? It wouldn't happen, right?
Very good point, Freddy. And it's what people, it's a good question they should ask themselves. Exactly. So this goes actually hand in hand with the first question from our listeners from last week, Freddy. So Ryan Toom is asking, given the divergent economic policies between the US and China, will this have any impact on StashAway's allocation across both market in the medium to long term?
Because we are medium and long term, these things don't affect our asset allocations. Also, it's not human driven, not by myself. It's all by the numbers and data. And so to qualify, last year, we picked up the signal that dollar depreciation is going to be a big thing, and it happened. So we moved into China rather than the US. So China tech rather than US tech, right? So that has a multifaceted angle to it. China, of course, a long-term story, right? Is going to continue to build its own ecosystems in tech, and it doesn't print nearly as much money as the US, as we just mentioned. That's a good news in terms of currency. The depreciation story is more applicable to the US dollars, right? So all these things are the stuff that drives our decision. It's very systematic, it's very data driven. So because it's medium and long term, these things don't matter. We let the data speak for itself.
Data is key. Next question, Freddy. Jason Lim is asking, if bond yields are up, meaning prices are down, isn't that a great opportunity to buy bonds? Another way to see is money outflows from bond markets will probably reach equity markets in the near term. Isn't this also good for investors?
Again, that's a market timing question. And if you can do it consistently well, by all means, if that's your view, feel free to do it. But in the long term, it's going to be very difficult to keep making calls like that, right? I would ask investors instead to think back since 2020. If you have concentrated your investments in the stock markets and everything is going well so far, maybe it's time to think about broadening the breadth and depth of your portfolios. And if that's the case, the bond market gives you a cheaper entry level now to buy some protective assets, just in case something surprises you in the stock markets, right? That's one way to look at it. I think it ultimately goes back to your risk level.
Okay, thank you, Freddy, for all the question answering today. If you want your questions answered, please feel free to always drop them down into the comment section or email them to us at support@stashaway.sg. So Freddy and myself can pick them up over the next couple of weeks. With that being said, we do have some very, very interesting webinars coming up. And the first one is actually for all of our regions. So Singapore, MENA, Malaysia. We have a joint webinar with Blackrock. It's called Blackrock X StashAway, ESG Uncovered, Can Sustainability Drive Returns? That's on Thursday, the 1st of April. It's Singapore, Malaysia time, 7 p.m. And for our MENA region listeners, it's around 3 p.m. your time. So please feel free to sign up for this. The links are in the show notes below, as well as on our website and on Eventbrite. And for our Singapore audience, we have our ongoing series called Bringing StashAway to Your Workplace. The next one for that is on Wednesday, the 31st of March, 6 p.m. Again, link is in the show notes below, as well as on our website, Eventbrite, Facebook, and anywhere else you can find StashAway. With that being said, hey, Freddy, thank you again for being here. Looking forward to next week. Until then, have a great week, everyone. See you shortly. Bye-bye.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notified whenever we have new content out for you. Also, don't forget to download the StashAway app. It's available in the Apple App Store as well as the Google Play Store. So you can start on your financial journey right now.